Hello and welcome to Casual Leaves. Today I'm doing something very maybe a bit drastic but something necessary. I am going to be working on my Alocasia Silver Dragon, and I will actually be transferring it to PON from soil. So basically I have two of these plants. I have two Alocasias and they look beautiful. Let's just admire them for a bit. And I really love Alocasias, and they are just so unique. Their foliage is very unique, and the way the leaves are like these cardboard paper thick kind of leaves, I really love them, and the colors and the combinations of the patterns are really lovely. So I have two of these today, and they're actually three plants. So this one is like a two-shooter plant. So there are two plants in here. That's why it looks better and bushier. And there's another one here, which is a single shooter plant. They have not really been growing. This one gave me one leaf, but they are not really thriving. So if you see this leaf here, this is the newest leaf, but it's kind of struggling. I don't know what the issue is. Oh, it has spider mites. I just saw it. It has really bad spider mites, all of the leaves. So anyway, the agenda was to transfer it to PON. So I think that works still because the plant isn't doing great. There has been no growth. Maybe there are corms. That could be a reason why there is no growth. Spider mites could be a situation, or maybe it's the roots and the soil. So I'm actually now glad that I have noticed this here in broad daylight. And that's why I could notice it. I look at my plants every day, but I actually hadn't seen this. So I think we'll be doing two things now. We'll be treating it for spider mites, and we will be putting this one version in PON. I don't want to disturb the big one. This is a second plant, and I'm okay to experiment with it because I do know when I transfer it to PON, the plant will go in a bit of a shock. We may lose leaves, and now that I see it has spider mites, that could also be a situation. So nevertheless, I will continue. I will transfer it to PON. And I have this food container which I'll be using for that, and I'll use a separate pot planter which will be the reservoir, and I have my PON here soaking in water. I have just done this. I have put it in water, extra water, because there was a lot of dust in my PON, so I wanted to settle down. So that's happening all separately. And yeah, let's start. As we start, I will talk about a few things in detail. There'll be a lot of tips and tricks that I'll talk about in care guide with PON when you transfer a plant. And so yeah, let's start with it. But before we begin, if you're new here, thank you so much for choosing to watch this video. I make houseplant videos and at times interesting unboxing and review videos. So do subscribe to the channel. And if you're returning back, thank you so much for coming back one more time. It means a lot. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is I will spray my spider mite solution on this plant, clean the leaves, and then we will start removing it from the potting mix. So I will move to the kitchen for that. As you can see, I was kind of treating my Splendid for spider mites too. I don't know from where all of this is coming into my plants. I have no idea. I don't know. I read somewhere it's maybe because of less moisture or dryness that spider mites come. Not really sure. The other way could have been that I washed the leaves with water first and then do the spraying later, but the amount of spider mites on here were a lot, so I'm just gonna spray and try to clean the leaves with my hands. Okay, so I'm back out again. This is still a bit wet from the cleaning. I had watered the plant 3 days back because I didn't want the soil to be very dry when I transfer it to PON. So that's one thing you need to remember when you're transitioning the plant from soil or any medium to PON, which is a semi-hydro way of doing this, where there's a lot of water and a separate medium, which is the PON. You cannot directly move the roots from a dry situation to a water situation now. So you need to make sure the roots were at least having enough water in them to face the transition and not get damaged and shocked during that process. So make sure your plant has been watered well before you decide to transfer it to PON. Just gonna keep this here. So the good thing is the roots are nice. I love the roots. Oops, a lot of mess here. Lovely roots. I think that's a good thing. So I've had this plant for 3 months and I just got a single leaf in that time. So that was my first sign that I would like to shift it to PON. A lot of alocasias do well in PON is what I have been noticing. Okay, this thing is here again, the sponge thing. I hate it. So some nurseries add either a netting pot or a sponge at the base, which is what I don't like at all. I think it really hampers the growth of the plant. I'm just going to try and remove this spongy thing. Don't know why it's there, but anyway, I've spoken about this earlier. There are no corms really. There's one which is kind of wanting to develop, but it's not yet ready. So that's one corm. I think there's something here, but I was actually expecting a lot of corms in this. I thought that could be the reason why the plant is not pushing out new leaves, but that's okay. There's this cute little offshoot thing here. It's very cute. Okay, so I think that sponge thing is out, sort of. So now when we want to shift this to PON, we need to make sure that we remove as much soil as possible without traumatizing the plant and disturbing the roots. And since this guy has a lot of fresh roots here on the outside, I need to be careful to not disturb that too much. So there are 2-3 ways of doing this. There's a long way for transitioning into PON and there's a shorter way. The longer way is to sort of clean the roots from all the soil and place this in a water container for at least 5 to 7 days so that the plant starts developing water roots, so that when I transition it to PON, it doesn't get into shock. So that's the longer way, where I just clean this up, remove as much soil as possible, place it in a water container like a propagation and leave it for 5 to 7 days, let the roots create water roots and then transfer it into PON. But oh, I just broke this thingy. I broke my baby corm. So we'll see. We'll put it in sphagnum moss, I guess. So that's one way of doing it. The second way is I just clean the roots and I transfer it to PON and we let the plant adjust. We don't disturb it for a couple of days. And while transferring to PON, we have to remember there could be a loss of 1 to 2 leaves, which is perfectly fine, but the plants do bounce back. I have transferred 2 other plants into PON, not alocasias, and they are actually doing pretty well. They are syngoniums, which are doing pretty well. They have started showing new growth as well. Oh, there's one more corm here in the soil. I think I'll have to go through the soil to see if there are more corms. And I think there are more things in the soil. So I'm just going to use the stick. Ew. Okay, no. I thought there is a worm. Okay, so no more corms. Just this one, this tiny one, and barely tiny one. So that's not the agenda of this video, so I'm not getting into it right now, but I will try and place them in some sphagnum moss to see if they kind of germinate. Going to the sink back again to wash all the dirt from the roots. Okay, so I'm back. I have given this a thorough wash and the roots are all cleaned up. Uh, they are fine. There's some few dust particles, dirt particles there, which is totally fine. It's okay. Also, I wanted to talk about the other way of removing the soil, which is through a feather duster. I've seen a lot of people use a feather duster before going straight into the water. The other way is to kind of submerge this into water for 5 to 7 minutes, so all the loose dust particles kind of just drop off. Makes it a bit easier. Also, now this is my food container. I'd ordered some desserts, Indian sweet desserts. Using that, I have made holes in it at the bottom, and I'm going to be putting this into a different planter. Let me get that. And this is my PON, which is still soaking in. Not necessary to soak it in, you just need a strainer and run it under the tap water. That's fine too. I'm doing it this way. So this is the container I will be using. This is my IKEA container and this has no drainage hole, so works best as a reservoir in this situation for PON. And I do have a video on PON, all the beginner details and how to go about it, how to use it, what things do you need. So you can have a look at that because I'm not covering those things today. So what we will do is just gonna see how much length does it need. I guess this much is fine. I'll put it halfway in. So just gonna add some PON first. I hope I have enough PON. So try to place the roots in a way so they are on the sides a bit and you can check their progress. So it's easier to keep a track in the transparent container, which is what I love about transparent containers. PON can get very messy while you're doing this bit. So a lot of people wash it and kind of let it dry up a bit and then store it in containers. And then you can just use any scoop to pour the PON into the container. You don't have to use hands. I was so tempted to add my other plant also into PON, but I'm out of PON, otherwise I would have. Okay, looking good. I'm just gonna clean up the mess a bit and come back. Okay, so I'm back and I love how this is looking. It looks so beautiful, so pretty. I love PON, I guess. I mean, I hope the plant as well. And I can see the roots. I love these kind of basic plain plastic containers which double as pots for us plant people. So anyway, this is my reservoir container. I am just gonna add water into it about till here. That's where I've put the water till, and I'm just going to leave this and that. So the way to know when to water your reservoir is like when you pick it up and you hear this water thing happening, the dripping happening, it's fine. And the water only has to be till the first 1/3, not even 1/3, less than 1/3 of the container height. So like right about till here is the water, and you can keep checking, I guess, once a week to see if more watering is needed. Also, I have managed to very beautifully clean the corm. I hope it's showing. Yeah, so I've cleaned it up, and I do believe this is the top side up, and this is that other baby corm which also I have tried to clean up. I am going to put it in this little container with barely any water in it. This has worked for me in the past, so I'm going to be doing that. You can use bottle caps also, like the bottle cap on your any glass bottle that you may have, but this has worked for me in the past. I put very little water, maybe like 2 spoons, small spoons, 1 tablespoon kind of a thing, and I keep checking on this, and I will place it in a medium, this kind of a light situation. The amount of light right now, I'm going to place it in that, and I will update on this separately. Maybe do a shorts, YouTube shorts on that if something happens. Okay, so I am now settled down. I have cleaned up all the mess that I had made while doing this whole transition to PON, and I think the plant is looking lovely. Even though it is badly affected by spider mites, I think it should be fine. And I love this whole arrangement of the reservoir in this pot. I wish this would have been a bit shorter. That's fine. I think if this one is a successful transition, I will try to shift the other alocasias into PON as well. I've heard a lot of people talk about it, that it's actually very good. It works best for alocasias because of how dramatic they can be with their water requirements. So let's hope this works well. Just a couple of things I wanted to talk about in PON, though I have a video on it separately I spoke about, but very quickly. PON is pre-fertilized, so for about 6 months you do not need to worry about what to add in your water while watering the reservoir. You just need to use plain water, so that's amazing. The capillary action of PON itself will keep percolating water into the roots, so you don't have to worry about anything. So if you're always worried about when and how to water alocasias, or you have badly affected your alocasias with your watering like I have, then I think PON is a very good solution. You have to experiment with this, so make sure you're not taking a very healthy alocasia which is doing fine in soil and just move it to PON without a reason. Because that may really cause shock and trauma to the plant. So only if you need it, or only you have the time and patience for it, or you have a backup plant that you want to experiment with, only then would I recommend. Or of course, if your plant is on the struggle bus and it has not been doing well, which was the reason for me today to shift it to PON, then it would be a good idea. So just make sure you know why you're doing it, is what I want to say. Also, the other thing is to be patient now. After this transition, we have to give time to the plant. We must not fixate on getting new growth from the plant too soon. Though I have experimented on two of my other plants and growth does come quick, but we must stay notifications. We must stay patient. And just one other thing, last thing, it's better to use these kind of opaque containers, because if PON directly gets hit by sunlight, it creates algae, mucky waters, sticky things putting in it, so avoid that. And yeah, I think that's about it. That's all I wanted to add as little tips and tricks, not really tips and tricks, but care guide maybe for your plants in PON. And that's it for now. I'm so happy with the results, and if you like the video so far and all my other content, please do like the video and do subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell, and I'll see you next time. Bye.